These photographs were found on a mobile phone inside an abandoned truck in the mountains of Oklahoma in October 2009. The truck belonged to a family of three, a husband, a wife, and their 6-year-old daughter. It was found on a remote dirt road leading into the Bois mountains. The engine was off. The doors were unlocked. Inside were the family's dog, their mobile phone, their GPS device, and approximately $32,000 in cash. The family was gone. The photographs on that phone, taken in the hours before they disappeared, show Bois and Sherilynn Jamison walking across their property, separately, slowly, with an expression on their faces that investigators and the public have spent years trying to describe. 4 years later, their remains were found less than 3 miles from where the truck was abandoned. The cause of death was never determined, and the photographs have never been explained. This is the Jamison family case.
For a Eufaula family of 3 missing for about 2 weeks now. Rescue crews are searching on the ground and in the air.
Bois Dale Jamison was 44 years old. He worked as a contractor and had lived in rural Oklahoma most of his life. By accounts from those who knew him, he was a quiet man, practical, hard-working, and deeply devoted to his family. Sherilynn Jamison was 40 years old. Friends described her as warm and outgoing, a devoted mother who was fiercely protective of her daughter. She and Bois had been married for several years, and by most accounts their relationship, while occasionally turbulent, was one of deep mutual attachment. Madison Jamison was 6 years old. She was in 1st grade. She liked animals. She had a dog named Tegan, who was found alive in the truck on the day the family was reported missing. The family lived in Eufaula, Oklahoma, a small town in the eastern part of the state. In the months before they disappeared, they had been looking to purchase land in the Bois mountains, approximately 40 miles from their home. They had been to the area before. They knew the terrain. On October 8, 2009, the family set out for the mountains. Bois had reportedly arranged to view a piece of land for sale. They told no one exactly where they were going. They did not return. On October 9, 2009, a concerned relative reported the family missing after they failed to return or make contact. Law enforcement began searching the Bois mountains. The truck was found on a remote mountain road, a dirt track that ended at nothing, leading deeper into forest with no clear destination. The vehicle was in good condition. There was no sign of mechanical failure. The engine was simply off. Inside, investigators found the family's dog, Tegan, alive but distressed. They found a GPS device. They found Bois's mobile phone. They found Sherilynn's purse with her identification inside. And they found $32,000 in cash, bundled and sitting in the vehicle as if it had been placed there deliberately. There were no signs of a struggle. No blood, no damage to the vehicle, no evidence that anyone other than the Jamisons had been in the truck. The family had simply walked away from everything they had with them, their money, their identification, their dog, their phone, and into the mountains they never came back. Search teams combed the area for days. Helicopters flew over the dense forest. Volunteers joined the search. Nothing was found. No footprints, no campsites, no clothing, no sign that 3 people had ever been in those mountains at all. The search was eventually suspended. The case went cold. The photographs found on Bois's phone are the detail that has driven years of public discussion about this case, and when you see them, you will understand why. There are multiple images taken in the hours before the family disappeared. In the photographs, Bois and Sherilynn are shown walking, not together, separately, moving across the land with a slow, disconnected gait. Their postures are unusual. Their expressions, captured in several frames, are blank, vacant, as if they are looking at something no one else can see, or as if they are not fully present in the moment at all. The photographs have been described variously as eerie, disturbing, and deeply strange. Investigators noted that neither Bobby nor Sherilynn appears frightened or under duress in any of the images. They appear calm, but it is a calm that does not look like peace. Experts who reviewed the photographs offered several possible explanations. Drug intoxication, particularly methamphetamine, could produce the kind of disconnected, glassy-eyed behavior visible in the images. Investigators found evidence suggesting drug use may have been a factor in the Jamisons' lives in the period before they disappeared. Mental health episodes were also raised as a possibility. Bobby had reportedly been in an ongoing dispute with his father that had become deeply stressful. Sherilynn had spoken to at least one person about feeling that something was deeply wrong in the weeks before October. A third possibility, one that investigators took seriously enough to document, was that something or someone had frightened the family into the mountains. Bobby Jamison had reportedly told at least one person that he believed he was being watched in the weeks before he disappeared. None of these explanations have been confirmed. None of them have been ruled out. 4 years passed. The Jamison family case remained open but inactive. Then, on November 16, 2013, a hunter in the Bois mountains made a discovery. Skeletal remains were found in a heavily wooded area approximately 2.7 miles from where the truck had been abandoned in 2009. 3 sets of remains. They were identified through DNA analysis as Bobby Jamison, Sherilynn Jamison, and Madison Jamison. The medical examiner's findings were, in some ways, the most confounding part of the entire case. After 4 years of exposure to the elements in a dense forest environment, determining cause of death was extremely difficult. The official finding was inconclusive. The medical examiner could not determine how the 3 of them had died. There was no evidence of gunshot wounds or blunt force trauma to the skeletal remains. The remains offered no clear answer to the most fundamental question: what killed them? Investigators noted that the location where the remains were found was not easily accessible. It was deep in dense forest, off any marked trail, in terrain that would be difficult to navigate without specific knowledge of the area. The question of how 3 people, including a 6-year-old child, ended up there remained unanswered. The Latimer County Sheriff's Office has never closed the case. It remains officially listed as an active investigation. As with every case on this channel, let us look at what the evidence does and does not support. The first theory is accidental death from exposure. The most straightforward explanation is that the family became lost or disoriented in the mountains and died of exposure to the elements. This theory is consistent with the inconclusive cause of death finding. The problem is the distance. 2.7 miles into dense, difficult forest raises the question of how a family, including a 6-year-old child, walked that far in what appears to have been a crisis state. The second theory is drug-related incident. The photographs, the disconnected gaze, the slow, separate walking are consistent with the behavioral effects of stimulant intoxication. It is possible that the family drove into the mountains in an impaired state, abandoned the truck for reasons that made sense to them in that moment, and became fatally disoriented. This theory does not explain the $32,000 left in the truck. The third theory is foul play. Bobby had reportedly told people he believed he was being watched. There were unverified reports of involvement with individuals connected to the local drug trade. The cash in the truck has never been explained. Some investigators have proposed that the family met someone in the mountains and that encounter ended in their deaths. 4 years of exposure would have removed most physical evidence either way. The fourth theory is a mental health crisis. Bobby had been under severe stress. Sherilynn had expressed that something felt deeply wrong. Some researchers have proposed that one or both of them were experiencing a mental health crisis that manifested in the disconnected behavior in the photographs, and that the family walked into the mountains in a state of acute psychological distress. This theory does not explain the cache. The Jamison family case has been examined for 15 years. These are the questions that remain completely open. First, the cash, $32,000 left in an unlocked truck in a remote mountain location. Where it came from and why it was there has never been established. Second, the photographs. The images on that phone show two people in a state that no one has been able to definitively explain. They exist as a document of something that was happening to that family in their final hours. We do not know what that something was. Third, how they got there. 2.7 miles into dense, difficult terrain with a 6-year-old child. How they reached where they were found has never been explained. Fourth, cause of death. After 15 years, the official finding is still inconclusive. 3 people died in those mountains. We do not know how. Bois Jamison was 44 years old. Sherilynn was 40. Madison was 6 years old and in first grade. Their dog Tegan was found alive in the truck. He was taken in by family members. The photographs on that phone are still there, still unexplained. Whatever Bobby and Sherilynn were experiencing when those images were taken,
Whatever they were looking at, whatever they were feeling, whatever had brought them to that moment on that mountain road, they took it with them into the forest and never came back. What do you think happened to the Jamison family? Of all the theories, the cache, the photographs, the distance, which detail do you find most impossible to explain? Leave your answer in the comments. I read every single one. We are on the countdown to 100,000 subscribers. Every person who subscribes brings us one step closer to the reveal. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.